What inspired you to write the book Indivisible, How to Forge Our Differences into a Stronger Future?
My goal is that every person that has giftedness, that has a talent, that has an energy that they can bring into an environment is given the full opportunity to do that. One of the themes that kept coming up in my work was people wanting me to tell them what to do. Hey, Denise, how can I make my business more diverse or more inclusive? You know your business. You know the places that you're recruiting. You know how somebody moves up in your organization. The number one thing that I do with clients is get them to ask themselves these questions. You know when you're not doing something right. You know why you're getting the results that you're getting. You have to move in alignment with what you say you want. And to do that, sometimes you have to put down these stories that tell you what you can have, who you can't be, where you can't go, what you can't do. You gotta put them down and you gotta let the story change.
Welcome to the Omi Show, where we bring you authentic insights into the world of finance, pop culture, tech, and business news. Today, I am thrilled to welcome Denise Hamilton, a nationally recognized workplace culture and DEI expert. As the founder and CEO of WatchHerWork and All Hands Group, Denise has trailblazed, is a trailblazer and trailblaze, in empowering professional women and transforming workplace cultures. Her thought leadership has made Harvard Business Review, MIT Sloan Management Review. You know what? And multiple Fortune 500 companies that she's consulting for. And I am so excited to add to her plethora of titles, author of the book Indivisible, How to Forge Our Differences into a Stronger Future. Welcome to the Omi Show, Denise.
I am so glad to be here.
So we're going to chop it up because, I had an opportunity to, get a little pre-read, but I also, of course, had to order the book because I got to support and read the whole thing. So I'm excited to be able to jump into the whole thing. I'm about to go on sabbatical. I don't know if I told you that, but so this is a great time for me. But one of the pieces. Well, actually, wait, look at me. Let me let you. I'm like, look, one of the pieces of the book that I want to talk about. Okay, let me let you jump into it. Tell us, for you, in your words, what is the book about and what inspired you to write the book Indivisible, How to Forge Our Differences into a Stronger Future?
So I have been doing work in the DEI space and really I would say in change and transformation space for several years. And it was starting to feel like we were losing the plot. Like the tail was wagging the dog. One of the principles, actually one of the principles that guides my whole career is beware of the lesser goal. Right? Sometimes it's not that you can't reach that brass ring. It's not that you can't reach the higher level goal. It's that you have all these easier goals right in front of you that are so accessible. You could just reach out and touch them, but they're diversions, they're distractions from the bigger goal, right? So there's a real danger of the lesser goal. And I felt like we were sitting in a lesser goal. My goal is not to have two of each kind like Noah, like two of each kind in the company. My goal is that every person that has giftedness, that has a talent, that has an energy that they can bring into an environment is given the full opportunity to do that. And that we remove any and all barriers that would stop them from that. That's the goal. But what we had done is reduce kind of all of the goals into some little checklist so that you could put it in the annual report for the board meeting, right? And that's not really what the goal is. The goal of inclusion, first of all, inclusion is a value. It's not a program, right? We don't argue about integrity, right? Because it's a value, right? And we had reduced this work to these simplistic measurements because they were the ones we could control, right? But let's say I was going to evaluate or measure motherhood. And I'm going to give you 5 metrics. You feed your child, you clothe your child, you make sure they get to school every day. We're just going to pick 5 metrics. and you are killing it on all five of those metrics. If you beat your child half to death every night, you are not a good mother. And so we have these arbitrary goals that we feel really proud of. Check, check, check. Oh, we had the potluck for Chinese New Year. Check, check, check. Oh, we have the employee resource groups. Check, check, check. And these are nice things, but they're not the goal. The goal, in my estimation, is to be indivisible, is to be indestructible, because we are so solidly connected to each other. We have mechanisms that elevate the best and brightest of us. We have spaces that allow everyone to bring their giftedness to the stage, right? And if we're not doing that, then we're kind of fooling around. So this book for me is a return or a reminder of what the actual goal is. And what do I mean? I want to be very clear of what I mean when I use the term indivisible, right? I think it's a word we've all said. Everybody has said this word in their life, but nobody really knows what it means, and nobody really has, we don't even have it as an aspiration anymore, which blows my mind. But to me, the best metaphor for being indivisible is the human body. The brain and the lungs don't argue. Which one of us is important? Right? They understand that they're both important. Your legs are the strongest muscle group in your body, and they can take you anywhere that you want to go. But you are going exactly nowhere unless the tiny little structures in your ear manage your balance. It's not about size, it's not about position, it's about every part of the whole being able to bring their giftedness, their effectiveness to the stage for the betterment of the whole. And we're not doing that right now. I have a
Mm.
I have a recurring nightmare that the cure for cancer has already been born, but we don't have it because it was born in the wrong neighborhood. We don't believe in developing everyone. We don't believe in giving everyone a chance to shine. And that's costing us. I believe that's costing us. So I wanted to write a book to take us out of the petty, silly arguments that we spend all of our energy having and focus us on the things that really matter and really move the needle. Hence, indivisible.
I love that because you're right. One nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for some.
Mhm.
Um, who do you feel like the book is for? Because I love what you're saying, and so it made me curious around who is the best fit to pick the book up. Where do you see the uses of the book across different companies or entities, or and ideally, if they haven't picked it up already, who would be an ideal entity or client to go and pick it up? I'm curious.
Yeah, so this is a really hard question because when people, it's like, you've written a book and, when they ask you, who is your target audience? And they want you to pick a group, and you're not supposed to say everyone, but it really is everyone. It really is. It's really for leaders, right? And a leader could be somebody that leads a company or leads a Girl Scout troop, to be honest with you. Anybody who is in the position to create space, who is in a position to influence how decisions are made, and is in a position to create opportunities and scaffolding where it's necessary. Those are the people that should read this book. People have sent this book to the White House because they're like, our leaders need to have this book. But then, I've spoken to a wide range of schools, parent groups who are like, wait a minute, are we doing this right? Are we thinking about this right? Because this is not a checklist book. This is a book about the fundamental values, the ideas that drive your decision making. I go into a lot of organizations and they want me to give them a checklist. They want to do a training. Can you give us some
A
direction?
workbook. Can you give us a workbook?
And I was like, that's not what the work is. You think the work is about understanding other people. No, the work is about understanding you. It's about understanding the things that are running around in your head or not running around in your head that drive your decision making. So it's more foundational than normal, quote unquote, normal DEI trainings. People call me all the time. Can you come in and do a training on unconscious bias? No, I can't. because that's not what I do. But what I can do is I can come in and talk with your team about what's getting in the way of them being authentically inclusive. Because
Mm.
it doesn't matter. You can clean cobwebs all day long, but there's a point where you have to go get the spider. And so this book is about the spider, finding
Ooh.
that, naming it, identifying it. And so leaders who are struggling, I think there are a lot of sincere people who are really struggling with how to move this conversation forward. They're stuck. This is a perfect book for them because you don't even realize the things that are in your way.
Yeah, I love that because I would add to that, leadership is not a title, right? Like it's not a title. And so for those who have you are the influential person. Are you the person that people are turning to? You're the person that people are looking at. Like, and you may actually be, move back it away. Oh, don't ask me. Why y'all keep asking me? Like, I was that person for a while, right? Like, everybody in the group is saying, hey, well, what you think? You're like, I don't know. It's because you are the leader. You have the influence. And, when I think about what I've read so far, is that it really is enhancing your ability to understand your leadership and how to conduct yourself in the spaces, which means bringing more of what you think out into the open, bringing yourself more into question, bringing more clarity to your belief system, and the narratives and stories you've lived in for so long, and what questions to ask. Which, one of my favorite parts is the ask yourself sections, and I'm like, oh my god, these are golden, um and these are gems, because I think that, like I said, the quality of your questions determines the quality of your life. And so being able to know, like, hey, you should be asking yourself some different questions. What inspired you to add those sections? I think I really loved it. It warmed my heart to see them.
Well, I think, one of the themes that kept coming up in my work was people wanting me to tell them what to do. I was really struck by that. I would go to a field that I don't know anything about. I don't know anything about your business. Hey, Denise, how can I make my business more diverse or more inclusive? And I kind of was struck. Well, why are you asking me that? You know your business. You know the places that you're recruiting. You know how somebody moves up in your organization. I don't know that, but you do. I think one of the challenges of our time, to be honest, is hopelessness and helplessness. This idea that we have templatized the whole world, the Canva of it all. Everybody is looking for the 5 steps to do this and the 4 steps to do that. And guess what? There's not 4 steps. There's not 5 steps. I hate to break it to you, but you cannot reduce the entire world down to Democrat and Republican. Like this is a complex, sophisticated world. And you're going to have to turn on your creativity and turn on your problem solving. And you have to think about it for yourself. I find that the number one thing that I do with clients is get them to ask themselves these questions. Like I just pose the questions and you have the answers within you. You know when you're not doing something right. You know why you're getting the results that you're getting. You know where the places that you need to zig instead of zag. You know that, John has had 90% turnover of every woman that has worked for him for the last 2 years. So why are you asking me, what should I do about John? You know what to do about John. I had a client call me and they said, hey Denise, I want to run a situation by you. And I was like, sure, happy to. I'm always open door policy. She said, we have this individual contributor that we want to promote into a manager. He is excellent at what he does, but he says that he's concerned about the Me Too movement. Because of Me Too, he is not willing to risk managing women. Like he won't have individual meetings with women. He's not going to do lunch or meals with women. He's not going to do. He's fine to do that with men, but he won't do that with women. And what do you think about that? And I just said, what do you think about that? Why did you call me? You didn't need to call me, right? What did you? I said, let me reflect back to you what I've heard you say. You have a job. And the person that is applying for the job is telling you during the interview they're not willing to do 50% of the job. Should they get the job? It doesn't matter how much training we do if when you're in the position to make those decisions, you don't make the decisions. We can do all the definitions and all
Mm.
the employee resource groups and for the rest of we can do it ad infinitum. But if you're not empowered to make the decisions, you just perpetuate the harm. What do you think that manager, working for that manager, is going to be like if you're a woman? What do you think that experience is going to be like? Somebody that is empowered to tell you on the interview what he's not going to do, right? So I think that I felt it was really important to include this kind of urge and prompt around self-analysis because too many of us are moving like spectators when we're leaders, we're drivers, we're decision makers, we're policy creators. But the thing about our time that we live in is we have been talked out of our power. We have been lured into a helplessness and a hopelessness that has robbed us of what we're capable of. And in the book, I talk a lot about Harriet Tubman. That she is my personal muse, right? Here is this woman enslaved, can't read, can't write, had never been more than a mile from the plantation, didn't have a map, didn't have a horse, had a seizure disorder because she was brutalized as a child. There's no reason that this woman should have been able to run by herself from the south to the north. If the story could end right there, but that's not where it ends. She turns around, girl, and goes back. She gets 3 people, then 5 people, then 4 people over the course of years for a total of approximately 70 people. And I don't mean no harm. Does anybody listening to this conversation right now have less resources than Harriet Tubman in the 1800s? Do you have less power, less information, less access? You have more of everything except commitment, character, consistency. That's what we're lacking. We are so incredibly powerful, but we have allowed ourselves to be talked out of that power. And that's really what I want to remind people in the book, to soldier up, pull yourself together. You can do so many incredible things if you allow yourself to do them.
I love that. Eloise Greenfield, she has a poem that says, Harriet Tubman didn't take no stuff, wasn't scared of nothing either. Ain't come in this world to take no mess, and didn't take none either. So it's like a really it's a little kid book. I have to find it now. It's in my book. So it's in the living room. One of the things that you talk about that I think is so key is processing unresolved grief. And you don't hear that conversation a lot in the DEI space. And so I was really curious about what inspired you to, because I think it's such a part of the DEI space, but we don't talk about it.
Mm-mm.
So I really wanted to hear what inspired you to add this piece to the book.
I think we are very comfortable with anger, right? Frustration when somebody is moving in a way that feels counter to us. I think we are comfortable judging. Compassion is much harder. Patience is much harder. When I sit with people and they are angry, they are adamant, they're protective of their position, right? I could easily dismiss them, call them racist, and walk away. But what I really see is fear. You know, what is my child going to have? Have Are these changes going to impact my family in such a way that I'm not going to be able to provide? Will I be able to compete? What does this mean for me? And if you have been socialized around supremacy, which we have, right? Like there's a population in this country that's been socialized around that. Any kind of equality feels like oppression. Any kind of change feels like a loss. And sometimes it is a loss. We talk a lot about pie. There's enough opportunity for everybody. It's not pie. That's something we say a lot, but that's not really true. If there's 9 seats on the board and we're saying we want more women on the board, somebody has to get up. People are afraid of getting up. They are afraid that you're going to come and tell them they have to give up what they have gotten. And we don't really give any attention to that grief and that loss. And just because it's the right thing to do, these changes are the right thing to do, it doesn't mean there's not pain associated with those changes. And so I really try to give room for people to process that grief. Unprocessed grief turns into an insurrection. That's really what it is. It's loss and panic and terror, right? So and the story I use in the book was my grief around Bill Cosby, right? Like all of because he raised me, right? Let's be very clear. Like he taught me about money. He taught me about dating. The Cosby Show literally raised me. I was a latchkey kid growing up in hood in Brooklyn. My mother worked like 3 jobs. So Cosby was another parent, and to find all the accusations coming out. And I was 10 toes down. He would never, no. But that was woman number 2, then woman number 5, then woman number 9, and 13, and 20. Then you had to be like, okay. But it didn't matter that it was true. What mattered was my loss of this story. Our stories tell us who we are. They shape us, they define us. And when we lose our stories, there is a profound grief around that. And so if we don't acknowledge that grief, if we keep talking like this doesn't cost anybody anything, I think we subvert the conversations because they're not honest conversations. All change has a little bit of grief in there. That's why people resist it. We like our homeostasis. We like the status quo. The status quo is the status quo for a reason. So how can we acknowledge the pain of loss, still move forward? Now, this doesn't mean we don't do the things we need to do, but it means we're more honest about the pain associated so that we can confront it and channel it towards forward movement, because that's what we all want. We all want to be able to move forward together.
I love that. We got to go to a quick break. The quote that I have from the book is, when your old stories, heroes, and beliefs are cleared out, they are not immediately replaced with nice ideas. You can feel empty, lost. Unresolved grief is the equivalent of the empty house in the verse above. When the demons were exorcised, they left in emptiness. Nothing replaced them.
Mm-hmm.
The need to replace it and develop new feelings that you're digging into in this book is why I say it's for the leader in you, regardless of your position. So be right back after this. We got to take a quick break. We got Denise Hamilton here. She's the author of Indivisible: How to Forge Our Differences into a Stronger Future. I'm so happy to have you. Y'all keep it locked. We'll be right back. You just had the chance to hear a part of the remarkable journey of Denise Hamilton and her new book, Indivisible: How to Forge Our Differences into a Stronger Future. Now, we are going into the Ask Omi segment, but before we do that, I do want to ask a few more questions to Denise. Also, I want to get this Harriet Tubman poem right because it's my favorite. So the first stanza is, Harriet Tubman didn't take no stuff, wasn't scared of nothing either, didn't come in this world to be no slave, and didn't stay one either. I love that. So it's like, yes. All right. So Denise, what do you want people to walk away with after reading Indivisible: How to Forge Our Differences into a Stronger Future?
I want them to shift how they're thinking about our country, our businesses, our companies, just how we're thinking about it, right? One of the foundational concepts of the book is the importance of our stories. And our stories, some of them are broken, some of them are incomplete, and some of them are outright lies, but they're still in your head, right? We love our stories. I have to tell you, if you remember the story of Rapunzel, right? Rapunzel, she inappropriately long hair, locked in a tower with no door. And she helps the witch get in and out of the tower with her hair. She helps the prince get in and out of the tower with her hair. I have to be honest, I was in my mid 40s before it even occurred to me, girl, why didn't Rapunzel use her own hair to get out of the tower? We have all these stories to tell us, sit in the woods and wait for somebody to come save us. We have all these stories that tell us what a leader looks like, how tall they have to be, how deep their voice has to be, what the bad guy looks like, what the good guy looks like. And these stories aren't true. And so the work, the very necessary work that we all have is to challenge our stories, deeply challenge them. I have a shrine in my office. It's got 3 things on it. First thing on my shrine is an Airbnb sticker. Because if the team had come in to pitch me as an investor and they said, Sally and Simon, stranger from the internet, are going to stay in your house when you're not here, it would have been a hard no. It would have been a hard no, Omi. No way. I'd have been no. And worse yet, when you are there, they're going, no, absolutely not. I would have been a couple $1 billion wrong. And so I have that on my shrine to remind me, I don't know everything. I don't know everything. Second thing on my shrine is a little jar of Vicks Vapor Rub. Because you couldn't tell me when I was sick, when I was a kid, you couldn't tell me that wasn't the healing balm of Gilead. You couldn't tell me. My mother rubbed that on my chest and I knew it's on and popping. We about to be healthy. We about to be healed because of the Vicks Vapor Rub. They have done hundreds of tests, hundreds of studies. There's no medicinal value for Vicks Vapor Rub. So I have that on my shrine to remind me, even the stuff that I'm 100% sure about could be wrong. 100% certainty could be wrong. You have to hold things loosely. You have to be open to new information. You have to let the story change. Sometimes we don't want to let the story change. We're anchored in a story that doesn't serve us. The third thing on my shrine is a little Barack Obama bobblehead doll. And I keep it on my shrine to remind me, when he announced he was running for president, I laughed out loud. I thought it was ridiculous. Who is this guy? There's not going to be a Black president in my lifetime. And I wasn't wrong just once, I was wrong twice. So I put that on my shrine to remind myself that you can't let the disappointments of yesterday rob you of the possibilities of tomorrow. You just can't. You have to stay open. You have to allow things to get better. And sometimes we're anchored in our harm, in our trauma, in our disappointment. We're holding on to loss instead of releasing that loss and trading it for victory. So I think what I want people to walk away from this book with is a deep commitment to evaluating the stories that are telling them who they are, what the truth is, what can happen, what should happen. Because if you're willing to do that in sincerity, now we could get some work done. Now we can fix some things. Now we can change some things and make some things happen. I think we are such a powerful people. We sent somebody to the moon in a tin can with computers that are not as sophisticated as the phones we have in our pockets right now. Like, that's what we did. Why do we feel like we can't fix education? We can't make our bridges work. We just can't find any Black talent to work in our company. Why have we leaned into this helplessness? No more. So if you walk away from this book and you feel empowered, not even to change the world, just the 5 feet around you, can you just do the stuff that's right in your arm's reach? I look at the world like a big stadium. We're all in this stadium. If we all drop trash on the floor, the stadium is wrecked. But what if everybody bends down and picks up the trash at their feet? It's an entirely different experience. So I don't need you to be an expert in reparations. I don't need you to understand the Israel-Palestine conflict. I don't need you to do all of those things. Where are you recruiting for your company? What vendors are you using in your supply chain? How are you creating space for people of difference to move into leadership in your company? Like these are things that are in your control. In your control. Focus on those things and we'll be all right. So I just want to eradicate the helplessness, the hopelessness. I want to make people feel like they can do, and not only they can do, they should do. Because you are an owner of this country. You're not a renter. Owners fix the plumbing and the electrical, they fix the foundation. Renters use peel and stick tile. You are not passing through. You are not a spectator. You are an heir. We need to start acting like it.
Woo! I love that. That was so good. Okay, so standing ovation wherever you are. I mean, if you drive and be safe, but wherever you are, that is a standing ovation piece of content right there. That is what I think deep down we all actually want. And so like I love, love, love that. Oh, that's so good. I'm so excited for you, friend. Make sure you go get the book wherever you buy your books. Amazon, Barnes and Noble, all the places you can buy books from. It is called Indivisible: How to Forge Our Differences into a Stronger Future. Her name is Denise Hamilton. Make sure you look her up as well. Follow. What's the best handle to follow you?
Official D Ham. Official D Ham.
Love that. All right, we're gonna switch it to this Ask Omi segment. Which I'm also excited about because you already ask really great questions. I don't know if I'm excited or nervous, but take it away. It is all you. It could be. It literally could be any question that you want to ask. Doesn't matter.
So, a major concept in my book, as we talked about, is the idea of stories, right? The stories we tell ourselves, how they limit us, how they embolden us, how they tell us who we are, right? And in your work, you've worked with a lot of Black women, encouraging them to build businesses, to be innovative, to just step into this entrepreneurial space with boldness and with clarity. How hard has it been to get people to release their broken stories of what the world actually is, how it moves, who is against them, who is for them, what funds they can access, what scale they can reach. So much of this work that you do to me is wrapped up in helping people put down stories of themselves that maybe they've been told their whole entire life. How have you been able to do that?
Whew. To be honest with you, that is the work. Now, the pillars of how we get it done may be through creating containers that are spaces of belonging. Also lowering barriers of access to capital. However, when I dig deep, the work is the ability to create new stories with you. One of our competitions we had is where people get to pitch and they get to sell in a store. And one of our founders, she won the pitch competition, and we have a partner, Rare Beauty Brands, that works with us, and they helped her get into Ulta Beauty. All right, so they're part of that. Our partner that helps them get into the store. So like they pitch, you win the pitch competition, and now you can go sell. She got to sell on ultabeauty.com, and eventually that led to her like doing things at Ulta headquarters, meeting the CEO, like all kinds of things, right? But one of the things she said that clued me into this being our work is I did an interview with her and the CEO of Rare Beauty Brands and her name is Kim Roxy. She's the founder of Lamit Beauty, and she's actually in Houston. And so we did an interview, and she said this process, because what Rare Beauty did with the founders is they would work with them through everything they needed to do to get into the store. And some people are different marks. So that may mean your SKUs, developing your SKUs. That may mean, product labels, whatever it meant, certain certifications. He extended his team to really work with her to do it and work with the founders that we bring in to work with them with. And she said, this restored my faith in allyship because I don't know where I was with that before, but this really helped me see what true allyship looks like. And I could have cried, that really was an emotional for me, because to even think that something I created could be as powerful of a tool to move forward the way one person thinks about a whole group of people, differently, regardless of whether that was one race to one race, whether it was one woman to man, but like regardless, community to community, that's huge.
Yeah.
And there's times when people didn't get it. There's times when I'm like, hey, it's not because you was Black. It's not. Hey, it's not because you was a woman. It's not, and honestly, it's so hard to do that because we know that deep down, it's something there around the access that we have been prevented from because you're Black or because you're a woman. That is why you don't know that you needed to put this in your day, right? It is why you don't know that, you needed to bring this thing to dinner, or don't ask for this thing, or don't operate this way at the table. It is because there's the division between the access has historically had to do with gender and race. And so I think that it's hard to tell them now, hey, that wasn't because of that. I remember we went to to your point around stories and narratives that people tell themselves. She used to work for us. Now she's have her own company. I pitch coach her. She's amazing. And we went to a funder created this cohort of us, of like different nonprofits that they were helping through different experiences. And we went to this sort of retreat style event. And so she was with me, and she was working with me at the time. And the whole time she kept saying, well, I'm new here, so like every time we would have like a roundtable discussion, she would bring out how new she was to the space. So when it came for a group activity, one of the men kept saying, oh, well, let me just help you, da 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 da. Oh, well, I understand. Maybe you don't know that, so let me da da da, right? When we got back to the hotel room, she said, oh, why he always acting like I can't do something? He must see, it must be because, I'm a woman and a Black woman, people always act like Black women can't da da da. And Black women, and I said, I'm gonna challenge you on that. Because I don't know if you realized that this entire time you have been saying, oh, I'm new here. Oh, this is new. This is not typically in my wheelhouse, but I'm learning. I'm learning this, I'm learning that. So maybe it was because you was Black and a woman. I don't know. But one thing I do know and can verify is that you positioned your story to be that I'm new here.
Yes.
And him, sitting in whatever he feels about himself, ego-wise as a man, or in his space, or as a leader in his space, a fellow leader in his space, felt like he was helping you by extending, oh, let me show you, let me help you, because you had been saying that. And I think that particular story is such a clear, just like example of exactly what you're talking about in the book. Well,
Yes.
not only are we telling ourselves these stories in private, but we're playing them out in the open too. And we don't realize that people listen, people hear, people, and there are acts of innocence that still play out as that feeling like division.
Yeah.
Right? That you didn't even realize that you kind of conditioned that. You kind of conditioned that moment. And yes, should he be asking your permission? Yes. Is there other steps he could take too? Yes. And the story you told yourself, which then played out in the space, this is also now part of that story.
Right. Right.
And then she was like, oh, like.
And I think I want to really name the importance of you saying that to her, because that also is another deeper level of this work. We have to be able to say to each other, I'm not sure your story is right. I think we need to tweak and to not be defensive, to have a posture of learning, to always be in a learning posture. Something you and I have talked about. I don't say this anymore. As a Black woman, I have to work twice as hard. I have to jump twice as high. I don't, we don't say that anymore because it's not true. That's a mythology that has been beaten into us that says who I am is not good enough, is not important enough, is not significant enough unless I burn myself out into nothingness. No, I am incredible. I am gifted. I am brilliant. I am dynamic. I am just as good as you. I don't have to do more than you. I have to do what my giftedness allows me to do. My decision and how I move through the world is not in relationship to you. It's in relationship to the giftedness that lies within me, right? So here's something that feels innocuous that we've been told literally all our lives. How many times have people said the phrase, I have to be twice as good and jump twice as high in your presence? I can't even count it. It's in the tens of thousands. But that's a story that we need to release that. We need to put it down. And I think if we can be in honest communication with each other about those stories, and I think you have been so critical in this work, so critical, because in the story that you just shared, it's such a great example of how we'll miss each other. That leader that's trying to help you because you declared yourself as new, he might have been the most important relationship of your life. And you've missed it because you have misinterpreted his behavior and didn't really fairly assess your part in the changing the dynamics of the relationship. How many relationships are we changing the dynamics of
Mm-hmm.
every day that could be so powerful? We need to slow down and challenge the stories. And what, I guess I'll ask a follow-up question if I can. What's the biggest personal story for you that you've had to give up, that you've had to put down?
Oof. The biggest personal story that I've had to put down is probably interesting. I feel so, and I would say that, to some points in the book about removing stories or replacing them, and how that grief happens, is that it's fluid. It's just like sometimes they somehow get picked back up and I got to put them back down. Like, wait,
Mhm.
oh, wait, hold up. Pick that
Yeah.
up again. Ooh, nope, got to put that back down. A big one for me is suffer to gain. And that's
Mhm.
a sort of
Mhm.
Christian,
Yeah.
I grew up and was groomed in that. Suffer the gain, suffer the gain. You got to work, it's going to hurt. No pain, no gain. That, like, I'm even still trying to work out of that. As I think about right now, going on sabbatical for 3 months, I was just last night, I was talking to one of my board members, a good friend of mine too. And she's like, what are you looking forward to on sabbatical? And I'm like, well, I feel like I'm going to cry. I'm going to really, I was like giving her this, like, I'm going to like admit some things to myself. I'm going to work. And she was like, I feel like you put a lot of pressure on yourself. She's like, what about joy?
What about it?
What about joy? And I was like, I have been so numb to what it means to have joy for so long because I've been telling myself, if I'm not suffering, I'm not gaining.
It has to be hard.
It has to be
It
hard.
has to be
If it's
hard. It's a
easy, did I even
struggle.
deserve it?
Grind.
If
Yeah, you got to earn it. And it's like, what does ease feel like? What does flow feel like? I remember the first time I sat in in a conversation, like a workshop about the concept of flow. It took me like an hour and a half. I was like, what are y'all talking about? You don't get into flow. You work, you grind, you force, you push. The boulder has to be going uphill both ways. Don't you know? Like that's the only way I could look at things. And the idea of like, no, sometimes it just comes to you. Sometimes it's just natural. Sometimes it's just
sometimes it's
easy.
just easy.
Sometimes it's just this, if you're operating in your giftedness and in your, like, it just flows. And that was so antithetical to me. And
Mm.
once I could embrace that and allow that and remove the expectation of harm, I realized I was walking into spaces with this whole set of armor, being prepared because people are going to harm me. They're going to stab me. I don't know where the attack is going to come from. But that hypervigilance didn't let love in, didn't let
Oh,
heart in, didn't let kindness in, didn't let,
Ooh.
like all of the things that I really want from my life. It's like my friends that say, I want a man, I really want to be in a relationship. But then yesterday you were saying all men are dogs. Are you sure? Are you sure you want a man? Are you sure that's what you want? Like, you have to move in alignment with what you say you want. And to do that, sometimes you have to put down these stories that tell you what you can have, who you can't be, where you can't go, what you can't do. You got to put them down and you got to let the story change.
Oof, let the story change. That is our call to action for everybody. We got to end this show, but that's our call to action for y'all. Let the story change and go make sure you pick up Indivisible, How to Forge Our Differences into a Stronger Future by Denise Hamilton. Thank you so much for joining me today. This has been an awesome, awesome interview. I can't wait to even listen to myself on replay. This is great.